Keshad Johnson is PJ Tucker with Derrick Jones Jr. athleticism.
Lost the handle and a bad pass picked off by Keshad.
Said it, I'm golden. Told you I'm shining. Had to break through. Plan perfect timing. Giving no hands. Get it. Radix the ruler. Can't f with them peasants.
Okay, maybe a high-flying PJ Tucker is a bit of a stretch. And I mean maybe, because I do think Keshad Johnson has that potential. But I have heard some other comparisons for Keshad, and that includes another Heat great, Jay Crowder, who's obviously a guy I like a lot, but I think Keshad Johnson is just way more athletic than that. So I did hear another guy like Kenyon Martin Jr. That was a guy that Heat fans really wanted like a year or two ago when he was on the market, and we thought his value might be a little bit cheaper. I've also heard Dorian Finney-Smith, which is the guy that I've kind of been clamoring the Heat to get for a couple years now because I think he would be perfect in this Heat system. And I've also seen a lot of Obi Toppin on Twitter. I'm just here to check to see if you liked the video and subscribed. Doesn't look like you did yet, so could you do that for me, please? Thank you. Now, what you definitely are getting is a guy that can contribute right now. He's 23 years old, so I think he could instantly have a spot in this rotation, and that's something that I like a lot because this Heat team is obviously trying to win a championship right now. So although I do like Nikola Jurisic, for example, who they ended up trading for Pelle Larsson, we put a video up on him yesterday. Although I do like those sort of projects, I also like Pelle Larsson and Keshad Johnson because they can contribute right now, and the Heat are going to need those value contracts. But maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But Keshad Johnson also has a really nice frame to him. He's 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan and a nice 224 pounds. And these are the official combine measurements. So it's not a guy exaggerating for the sake of getting drafted. He has a legit 6'10" wingspan. And when you combine that with his athleticism, that defensive potential excites me like crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. But let's get into some of Keshad Johnson's numbers. He was a super senior, played 4 years at San Diego State, and finished off his last season at Arizona with Pelle Larsson, coincidentally. So it is cool that they kind of get both those guys in this Heat organization. But in his super senior season, Keshad averaged 11.5 points a game, 6 rebounds, almost 2 assists, a steal a night, which you love to see there. And he did shoot a very good 53% from the field and 39% from the three-point line, which is what gets everyone super excited, and that's on a little over 2.5 attempts. It was at 2.6. So I do think that's decent volume, enough to say the 39% is not super fluky. Obviously, I'm not the most confident in his shooting ability because if you look at his prior seasons, he shot 26%, 18%, 33%, 22%, but the volume was pretty low. Before his final season, he only shot almost 1 attempt a night. And then the next season, he almost doubled his attempts, and the three-point percentage also shot through the roof. That's something that you like to see, and that does give me confidence because usually when a guy's volume goes up, their percentage goes down. That hasn't been the case with Keshad Johnson. Also, I think his form is pretty decent. We'll talk about his shooting a little bit later as well. But I do think he has some nice potential to be a true shooter in this league. And even if you look at his free throw percentage, which is where I kind of like to key in when a guy has shooting questions, he was 71% from the line in his final season on 3 attempts a night. But just like the rest of his shooting numbers, that was a bit inconsistent as well. But even if he can't shoot, let's say he's a terrible shooter, he is still athletic as hell, an absolute freak on that end, and that is something that I truly love to see. I actually do think he has close to Derrick Jones Jr. levels of verticality. I mean, Keshad actually did tie for first in max vertical leap in the combine. It was at 42 inches. He tied, surprisingly, with Reed Sheppard. Who knew that guy was a high flyer? I mean, I saw the numbers, but yeah, he tied with Reed Sheppard. But still, he was still number one. So you love to see Spoelstra getting some actual athleticism along with Khalil Ware, along with Jaime Jaquez, who they drafted last year, because now it seems like the Heaters are finally starting to stray away from that culture philosophy. I said yesterday they've been playing prison ball for like 5 years now, where they get these gritty, tough, grinded out sort of guys. And it's nice. You can win games like that, but can you win a championship? I don't know. I just feel like getting guys like that really limits Spoelstra in the absolute genius mind that he has offensively and defensively. So now that you give him some tools that can actually, that are actually athletes, like pure athletes, I'm just thrilled to see what kind of schemes Erik Spoelstra cooks up with that. Now back to the shooting. I do think the shooting is real because he has particularly been very good in the corners. This is kind of where I got that PJ Tucker comparison from. He's a guy that has been excellent from the catch and shoot in those corners, and obviously the way the Heat like to run their offense, because they have guys like Jimmy who are very good at driving and kicking. Terry Rozier can get into the paint. They have those type of players, and when you have a corner spacer as elite as like PJ Tucker was, we saw how good the spacing was. So if Keshad Johnson could kind of bring something similar to that, I really think it would bring just a whole dynamic to this Heat team that they could really use. Now, he's not solely in the corner. He'll spot up, trailing three, top of the key. He'll shoot a little bit from both wings. But I do think the shot is real because the form it's not perfect, but I do think it's decent enough. It's not super ugly or wonky or anything that gives me real concern there. But I don't want to just limit his offense to, athlete and three-point shooter, because I did see some pretty nice drives inside the paint. I saw him pull up some mid-ranges, even off a little face-ups. He would do the little jab step and midi pull-up. So I do think his offense is actually better than he's been given credit for. He's also operated as a finisher in the pick and roll and the pick and pop. So I do think there's some offensive versatility there. Although if he was to come to, well, I guess he is on the Heat. He signed a two-way contract. I don't think he'd be featured in a versatile role. I do think he kind of would be used as a PJ Tucker. Now, I know Spo used PJ Tucker way more than, Mike D'Antoni did, for example. Spo actually used PJ Tucker in sets, and that's when we saw the little PJ float, that floater down the middle. So I do think Spo would be a little bit more creative, but it's not like Keshad Johnson is going to be a guy who has the ball in his hands a ton. Another way that he scores is in transition. He is elite at turning defense into offense, and that's where you get all these high-flying plays that are just really exciting to see. I'm really happy that he's able to bring that to the Miami Heat, and his defense is also switchy because he is 6'6", because he is athletic. He's an actual switchable defender, which we know is what Erik Spoelstra absolutely loves to do. Now, that's a little bit different from Khalil Ware. Khalil Ware is an excellent defender, but from the inside, very, very good shot blocker. So, which the Heat needed, of course. Don't get me wrong. The Heat needed an interior presence on the defensive end, but now they also have another guy who is very switchable, which just fits perfect in this Erik Spoelstra scheme. Obviously, he can block shots as well because of his athleticism, but it's nice to know that you have a guy that won't get punished off switches like we've seen with Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson. I say it all the time. Y'all know how the story goes. And he is a guy that plays bigger than he is. So I think he can guard, maybe anywhere from 2 to 4. And I have said in other videos, I'm tired of guys that play bigger than they are. But we're talking about an undrafted guy now. A guy that plays bigger than he is great value for an undrafted player, because there's not a lot of 7-footers hanging out in the undrafted territory. You know what I mean? Plus, the Heat already got Khalil Ware, a true 7-footer. So the fact they were able to get a guy that can actually guard up does provide some size, defensive ability, even though he's not super tall. That is just an excellent skill to have. And I think that's absolutely great value, because I even saw the Ringer, for example, had him mocked at 46, just 3 picks from where the Heat actually were slotted to pick at. So the fact they were able to get him undrafted is just great value. They've already signed him to a 2-way deal. It'll be interesting to see how the Heat fill out the rest of those spots. They get 3 of them. They already also signed Zion Poulin, who looks awesome, the guard from Florida. I'll have to do some more research and get a video out to y'all very soon, maybe even later today, tomorrow. It'll be soon, I promise. So that does, but because they did sign Keshad George to a 2-way, it likely means he will get decent run in Summer League, maybe get a few games with the team, maybe more than that, And I do think it also means that Jamal Cain might get an actual spot on the roster, because I don't think the Heat want to lose him. I really think the Heat like Jamal Cain a lot. Same with Alondes Williams. Cole Swider, I'm not so sure because he's a bit of a specialist. I think they can maybe find another one of him. But I do like the fact that maybe Jamal Cain and Alondes Williams can kind of get called up, because I like both those guys as well. And you talk about 2 athletic guys, particularly Jamal Cain. It just continues to provide some youthfulness, athleticism, and speed to this Miami Heat team, which is what I have been begging for years. because the slow grinded out can only take you so far. It's not the 90s anymore, Pat Riley. You got to run fast and play offense. And I think Pat Riley is finally starting to realize that. Not to mention, you might be losing Caleb Martin, who was one of your more switchy defenders, a point of attack guy, could also hit the three, but we know he's more versatile on offense than that, particularly versus the Boston Celtics. You know what I'm saying? But they are losing him likely and his athleticism because he's going to opt out of his contract. I don't think the Heat can afford to pay him. So I do think Keshad Johnson's a guy that could kind of fill in that role very nicely. But that's all I got to say about Keshad Johnson. Let me know what y'all think down below. Are you excited about the pick? Was there another guy that you'd like to see? What's your thoughts about him so far? Make sure to like the video and subscribe because I'm on the grind to hit 5K subs by the start of the next season. The growth has been crazy over the last 2 days, so let's keep it up. And I appreciate y'all for real. Stay tuned for Zion pulling video. I'll see y'all. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.